Time to go.
All right, let's go on time. So welcome for those of you that are joining us today. This is the Extended Disc 15-minute webinar, so it goes by really quick. Today is a very popular topic. It's called, we're focusing on tips for delivering leadership disc workshops. A lot of us do deliver disc workshops, and specifically we are asked to deliver disc workshops for leaders, for up and coming leaders. So we wanted just to kind of give you some very easy to use tips to build into your session. My name is Christina Bowser, and I'm the training director here at Extended Disc, and joining me today is my wonderful colleague, Markku Kauppinen, president of Extended Disc. Hi, Markku.
Hi, Christina. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so let's get started. So, I just wanted to show you, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about just things that you can start using today. And we're not going to focus in on just the broad scope of how to deliver a disc session or even how to deliver a virtual disc session. We have a lot of resources for that. And though, many of that you can ask for us after this webinar is over. We have a lot on our client resource site. But I just wanted, really just a simple tip here is to pick your report. Now, you can see here I have 3 reports in front of you: the individual, the manager, and the leadership. You're not going to go wrong with picking any of these reports. The individual report, I always say, if you have a non-intact type of group where you have people coming from different backgrounds and roles, or if you just have any group and you just want to make sure everyone has the same assessment, the individual assessment covers it all. However, the manager's assessment, and specifically we're going to focus a little more on the leadership assessment, really has that same information to help you develop yourself, but with the intent and focus on leadership. So that may be the one that you choose. Anything you would add to this, Markku?
Well, only thing I would add to it is that with Extended Disc is that once a person completes that questionnaire at one time, you are able to generate all of these reports and really make sure that you are able to provide the information to the participants at the time they need it. If you're working with, if you're not sure what to do, maybe the individual assessment is the best place to start. Maybe with frontline managers, the manager assessment is the best, the best place to start. And then we'll start getting leadership positions. You're able to provide these tailored reports that really are most relevant to the participants. And like you said, Christina, you really can't go wrong because all of these reports follow the same format. We want to make sure that people understand that as individuals, as people in general, we are different, not better or worse. We just have different behavioral preferences, how we do things. And then we begin to create that confident self-awareness and begin to think about how people are different and how do I not autopilot my most comfortable behaviors and begin to modify behaviors. And I think that is the key for any effective leader, is to not to repeat the same behaviors, because ultimately what you want to do is, I think, is to make sure that you don't only have successful employees, but you are aiming to take these employees and help to develop them to become leaders as well.
Exactly. So with these 3 reports, they're all built on the same template. So we all have very specific goals in mind, and hopefully we think, what are my specific goals for when my participants come to my leadership workshop? However, what we've helped or hopefully help you to do is we've created this template, this 4-step process, and we call it the 4 steps to effective interactions. And in this specific case, we're focusing on leadership. And what is so highly effective about this process is that you can take these 4 steps and apply it to essentially any topic, whether you want to do sales, whether you just want to do a general disc workshop. the other very important part of this, and we'll talk about each step, is that it has an application piece built into it. So it's not just about awareness and learning more about ourselves, but what are you going to do with that information now that you have it? So the first step, I'll start, is obviously understanding DISC. What are the 4 main DISC styles? And leaders come from all styles. So there's no better or worse. Sometimes we think there is, but every leader has their own strengths based on their style. And they also have areas that they may want to develop. Anything you would add to that, Marku?
Well, now when we're talking about this, I kind of jumped the gun there for a moment ago, but yes, you're absolutely correct. We must have the understanding that we need to learn to modify leadership behaviors to become more successful. And as leaders, I think a lot of times what we tend to do is we tend to react rather than think about what is the best response to a certain situation or certain interaction. And even if you're able to kind of slow down your reactions just for a couple of seconds and think about who is the person I'm dealing with, who is the person I'm talking with, who is the one that I'm trying to really motivate and engage and make them more successful. And if you're able to think about who they are and make it about that person rather than focusing on what you want to achieve at that moment, you really will notice that the impact is pretty significant, because then it becomes about that person and getting them engaged. And it's all about not so much that there's a right way or wrong way, it's just how we modify our behavior to really be focused on other individuals and not on ourselves. And unfortunately, it's very natural, and we all tend to do this, is we tend to react to things. And I think there's a, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. One famous quote that what happens to our life is not so much what happens to us. I think 90% is actually how we react to it, how we respond to it. And I think the same is very true with leadership, is that if you're able to understand and slow down for a second that, hey, let me just kind of slow down, think about it. What is the best course of action here in terms of how I behave, how I modify my behavior as a leadership in terms of communication, development, motivation, etc. It really makes a huge difference.
Right, and what I like about what Marku is focused on is the fact that that is the step 4 in this, is that how do we actually make these adjustments to our style to be a more effective leader. And what is great about these 4 steps, understanding the 4 main DISC styles, understanding your own DISC style, which is really looking at your own leadership report and understanding how you tend to show up. What are some of the sections in the report again? I know you had them in front of you, Marku.
Well, obviously there's a lot of information in there, and of course all of these reports can be customized for our clients' needs. But personally, what I like the most is there's a couple of sections, but how you lead your employees, to really get an understanding what are my natural tendencies to lead employees. And if I able to reflect and think about that, and again be able to have a conscious learned response to different styles of employees, how to modify that, that's really important to me. Other one is how you motivate your employees, because what motivates you, Christina, is very different than motivates some other folks here in the office. And if I try to use the same approach with everybody, obviously the results are not that great. How you develop employees, and this is key to me, because sometimes we are trying to kind of think about employees in where they are right now, where we really should be thinking about where they can be and could be in the future, and how do we develop them to become all they want to be and what they could be. And that's an important section to me, probably the most important. And well, maybe the last one, how do employees, maybe this is my favorite one, I spoke too early, how you help the employees to achieve their goals. And I think that's really important, because if you're able to align individuals' personal goals with organizational goals, and you combine those two, that's powerful.
Right. So, that kind of using your own DISC results, which is identifying your own leadership style using the leadership report has that type of information in it. And then what's great about the report itself is it really does take you through all four of these steps. When it talks about understanding how your employees are similar and different, and how, you know, there's a process for you to identify the main styles of your employees, it leads to, you know, the ultimate goal, right, is to make those successful adjustments. So not only do we present to you here the four-step process, but it's actually built into the report itself. Just obviously as trainers, we need anything to make our lives easier, right? So when we're presenting a leadership report, think about those four steps.
And
so I did want, oh, go ahead.
I was just say, it's like, obviously we look at these things, but the assessment itself is a workbook as well, where the people, the leaders are asked to reflect on these things and think about what can they do differently to become more successful. So it's not only assessing where you are, but it's really thinking about what I could be.
I love that. I did want to make sure that we threw in a couple tips for you guys today, because we did promise some tips, and I wanted to focus some tips on exercises. One of the simplest tips that I like to do when we do leadership workshops is to give people either a copy, a printed copy of their team, if everyone on their team has taken the assessment, or if they haven't, I like to give them this poster chart, and you can see our wonderful trainer Wilma here is demoing it, but it's essentially a chart pad size disc diamond, and a lot of our leaders plot their teams on this diamond, and then they put it somewhere highly visible. So think about what a powerful visual reinforcement that tool is for that leader, but not just for the leader. It also is telling their team that, hey, your manager values DISC, and thereby you should as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that once you, as a leader, have that in your room, or the training conference room, or somewhere else, it's very powerful message that this is important, not only to me as a leader, but it's important to us as a team, an organization, and that begins to makes it sure it becomes part of the culture, and people think about, hey, how are we different, how we should modify behavior, and to become more successful.
Exactly. And then Mark already kind of touched upon it, but when you work with your participants in a leadership DISC workshop, or in any DISC workshop for that matter, I always try to remind people to not look at their report as simply a report where they're ingesting information. I really want them to think about this as a dynamic, interactive workbook where they're actually, you know, making notes, highlighting things that, you know, just really resonate with them. Or in this case, this specific example I have, it's a section on improving your success as a manager. So a good exercise for your participants is to have them look at the reminders and suggestions of what to avoid. So these are tips that if they were to focus on any of these specific items, it would have a direct positive impact on how they lead as a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, Christina, it's like if you want to be successful in sport, if you want to become more physically fit, lose weight, you really need that daily reminders of how do I do this, because just knowing is not doing. Just because we understand something we should do doesn't mean we are doing it every day. So I need to be reminded different ways every day about how to eat healthy. What do I need to do in terms of the exercise? And think about that kind of a concept. For most of us, I think we're very familiar with. And if you want to become a better leader, which I think most leaders do want to do that, you need those daily reminders there as well. And even if you look at the reports like this, what we see here, okay, that makes sense, but actually stop and think about it in a frequent and regular basis really is the reminder to make sure that we are making those changes that at one particular time may not be that relevant, but yet a few days later, they actually become very significant.
Exactly. So use the report as an interactive workbook. I did want to just very quickly have us touch upon the resources, Markku. We have lots of resources. The number one resource besides ourselves as trainers and extended disc here, which is a valuable resource. But, you know, sometimes you need just to look at a PowerPoint, or you need some exercises, or you need some handouts. If you're an active user of extended disc, you have access to our client resource site. We also have a leadership facilitator guide. So for those of you that have perhaps never done a leadership workshop before, this is something that is a resource that we have available for you on how to deliver a leadership disc session. We have webinars and recordings, as you guys know, on different topics, including leadership, on how to do a remote session. And then one last thing I wanted to mention is we have the Manager's Playbook report. And this is an additional report that is kind of a valuable tool that you can actually generate specifically for your managers. Now, it would require their team members to have taken the extended disc assessment, but what's great is once they have, you can generate this Manager's Playbook. The Manager's Playbook is a team report that is specifically designed for the manager. So it's not to be given to the team. And even though it does take some effort and work on the part of the manager, once they go through it and they do the playbook and they answer the questions, now they have this very relevant report that they can use to better lead their team. Anything you would add?
No, it's like if you think about it, being a coach of a team and you are having the thing, you look at it and you don't want to tell the other team what you're saying. All of this information about your team is at your fingertips. That's what the Manager's Playbook is all about. So it makes your life easier. I think if you haven't provided to your managers, give it a try, and I think you will be very happy with the feedback you will get from your leaders and managers. All
right, so thank you guys all for joining us. We could talk all day about this topic. We have a lot more resources, so feel free to reach out to us. You can see here we have a couple of webinars coming up next week. We have the Sales Capacity Assessment Development Report on Tuesday at 2. And we also have the complementary and also independent Sales 18 Behavioral Assessment Report, and that's coming up on Wednesday, September 9th.
Yeah, so go to extendedis.org. On the top right-hand corner, you see a tab called Events. Click on there, sign up. Even if you can't make the date or time, please make sure you register, because we will send you the recording so you can listen to it at your convenience or share with your colleagues and others who think might be finding it beneficial. So I think that's it, Christina. Happy Labor Day to you and everybody else.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right, bye, be safe.